Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks to those who joined. I am about to be joined now for us to go live with Janet Padfield, who is a registered nutritional therapist from TFP Fertility UK, leading fertility clinic throughout the UK, and she will be sharing her words of wisdom around eating for fertility. So a nutritionist guide and toolkit for how you can prepare nutritionally for getting pregnant, treatment, etc. So hi to those who are joining, nice to see you today. I'm going to invite her in now, and then hopefully tech will be on our side and we can get started. Hi to those who are joining, good to see you today. We will be talking about everything to do with the basic principles when it comes to nutrition and fertility. Here we are. Hi, Janet.
Hello, how are
Oh,
you?
we are live. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Good, good. Hi to those who are joining. I've given the topic that we're going to be discussing a brief introduction and TFP Fertility UK. Please
Yep.
could you introduce yourself as a registered nutritional therapist, and we will get started with some great questions we have to answer tonight.
Okay, so I am Janet Padfield, founder of Apples to Zinc Nutrition, and I have been a fertility nutritional therapist since 2014. So helped lots and lots of lovely people. I work with fertility. I also work with an awful lot of kind of hormone balance, including the stress hormones, thyroid hormones, menopausal stuff, PCOS, endometriosis, lots and lots of different kind of hormones, blood glucose, the lot. So I'm a very much a hormone specialist and love talking about food.
Fantastic. Well, we are very fortunate to have you with us this evening, and thank you to TFP Fertility UK for setting this up. We have written an article with you, which is live on our website, so people can head to our link in bio to read more around this topic.
Perfect.
But of course, today is the last day of January, and January is renowned for fresh start, healthy living, healthy eating, all of the above, which can be good, but it can also be, I guess, kind of quite stressful for people in terms of living versus
Yeah.
preparing for fertility, etc. And that's why we're here today to talk about that holistic side of treatment with TFP Fertility UK. So first of all, please could you explain what are the basic principles, so your essentials for fertility nutrition, in your opinion?
So keeping it simple. I think that's the biggest thing. You can read an awful lot on Google that sends you down rabbit holes of specialist things that you have to do, but actually just eating a really good basic diet that includes protein, fiber, some healthy fats, and a little bit of carbohydrate, that's quite low in sugar, very, very low in things like alcohol and ultra processed foods and takeaways and things like that. So really just simple sort of Mediterranean style meat, fish, lots of veg, little bit of the carbs, and just, yeah, as nature intended, close to nature. So not a lot out of packets. So just keeping it real and keeping it simple.
Absolutely. What about things like if you're going out for a meal in a restaurant, how do you navigate a menu?
So an occasional blip on an eating plan is totally allowed. So if you're the kind of person that only goes out sort of once a fortnight, once a month, then just eat what you want off the menu, absolutely every single time. But if sort of eating out is a more regular thing, sort of once or twice a week, then it's about having a look at what's on the menu that again is as close to nature. So if they do something like if it's only kind of burgers and things like that, then have the burger without the bun and add a side salad and some chips. So you've got some potato, you've got some meat, and you've got some veg. So keeping it simple that way. If it's a Sunday roast, great, nothing wrong with the Sunday roast. It's meat, it's potatoes, and it's a load of veg. So that in itself is absolutely brilliant. If they do a piece of fish on a bed of rice with a lot of green veg, then amazing. It's a really good place to eat. But, just keeping it just close to nature.
And for anyone watching, if you have any questions whilst we're speaking, please do feel free to ask Janet. And also, we do have some fantastic questions that have come in from readers as well around these topics.
Okay.
So another thing around the basic principles is, which is something that I'm wondering or have wondered, what about kind of washing fruit, vegetables, that kind of thing when things are shop brought from the supermarket?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot about endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these are in all of the pesticides and the herbicides, and they're in the plastics that we use in food storage, and certainly the plastics that you're going to buy your fruit and vegetables and things like that in. They are endocrine disrupting, so they can mimic estrogens and they can just imbalance things. So the more we can get away from those chemicals, the better. So obviously we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis at the moment. So there's
Yeah.
this wonderful thing called Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen, which is released every single year. And that tells you the cleanest fruits and vegetables that you can buy in the
Wow.
UK, that you can get away with just washing really, really well. And then they tell you the dirtiest ones. So if your budget does extend to buying organic, then it's those ones to prioritize. So that's the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. And if you Google that, it'll come up with the latest guidelines on those. But if organic isn't in your budget, then it is literally washing and peeling
Yeah.
your fruits and
Yeah.
vegetables really well. So not just a quick run under the tap, but actually soaking them in a bowl of water or scrubbing them with a little scrubbing brush where possible. But yeah, the more you can do to wash all of those pesticides and things off your fruit and vegetables, the better.
Great. Okay, that's good to know. We read a lot about the term fertility cleansing. It seems to be a bit of a buzzword at the moment. Do you have thoughts on this sort of DIY home detox? What are your thoughts on
I
cleanses
have
and
thoughts, and I will
cleanses?
keep it PG.
Please do.
Please don't do a detox. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So our liver is the most wonderful organ in our body that works 24/7 to get rid of everything that
Yeah.
we don't need in our body. And really, a detox isn't necessary. What we do need is to make sure that we are giving our liver the right nutrients so that it can work in the best possible
Mhm.
way, and ideally not swamping it full of extra toxins that it doesn't need. So staying away from things like alcohol, too much caffeine, artificial sweeteners, lots and lots of ultra processed foods, and giving it lots of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and water, and your liver will just do what your liver is meant to do, and you don't need to do anything more important than that.
Water is a great point. How much water should we be drinking a day?
So there is no one, this whole 2 liters thing, that's not based on any science of any kind. So you do have to just listen to what your body needs. So if you start with a base of around about 2 liters for the majority of people, if you basically just look at your output, you should
Yeah.
be passing urine every 1 to 2 hours, and it should be a pale apple juice kind of color, apart from the first time in the morning. And so if you're going too much, or if you're going more than that and it's really, really clear and looks like water coming out, then you're drinking too much. If you're going every sort of 4 to 5 hours and it's quite dark, you're not drinking enough. Teas and coffees and herbal teas and all of that, they count towards your water. So you don't need to just drink pure water at that 2 liters. But if you are a very active person and you sweat a lot, or you're in an environment that is quite hot, or actually you are a little bit overweight, then you might need more than 2 liters. If you are quite sedentary and quite petite, you might need less than 2 liters. So just listen to your body. Everybody is
Right.
different.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Now, egg quality, that is a hot topic that's obviously hugely important for fertility, and something that, is good to have a discussion around from
Yeah.
a holistic point of view, especially with supporting treatment at the likes of TFP Fertility UK. So, improving egg quality or helping your egg quality, how long does the sort of cycle take, and what are your thoughts around trying to make a meaningful impact through nutrition?
Okay. So it takes around about sort of 90 to 100 days for an egg cell to mature and ovulate. So is really consistently eating well for those sort of 90 to 100 days is the best advice that I could give. So you want good nutrition going in every single day of that egg's development. So what I generally say is when I'm working with people, if they're looking at fertility, we would be working for 3 months together before ideally they start trying. Obviously, with the best will in the world, that doesn't always happen. But I would be looking at good, consistent nutrition. And it's what I said at the beginning, the basics. So close to nature, focusing very much on some protein, some carbohydrate, and like half a plate of fruits and vegetables. Just keeping it really, really simple, little bit of healthy fats in there. You don't need to do anything majorly special, but you just need to be consistent for a good sort of
Yeah.
3 months.
And what about men and sperm? Because that's obviously equally important.
Yeah, same time period actually. Pretty much exactly the same time period to create healthy sperm as well. So again, it's that consistency. Um, you know, things like zinc and vitamin C are hugely important for sperm health. So fruits and vegetables and lean proteins and meat and fish and things like that, lentils and pulses are going to give lots of zinc, and the fruits and vegetables are going to give lots of vitamin C. So doing exactly the same diet for a guy is not going to be a problem at all, and should help with that sperm production too.
Great. What about reducing the impact of PCOS via nutrition?
So everybody is completely different, and the severity of PCOS is different by person. And actually, there are several types of PCOS, so it completely depends on the type of PCOS that somebody has. On what I would recommend. So because we're all different, there is no sort of one size fits all approach. So if anyone does have sort of more kind of complex nutrient needs, I guess, then I would recommend that people do reach out to professionals who can really tailor a nutrition plan. But what I would say is that sugar is absolutely the number one enemy when it comes to polycystic ovaries. Just don't tolerate any sugars at all well. So you don't need to cut out all carbs. You don't need to be cutting out potatoes and rice and oats and things like that. But any refined sugars, you'd really want to be severely limiting those where possible.
Yeah, makes complete sense. As I said, if anyone has any questions for Janet as we're speaking, please feel free to ask. And then what about endometriosis? Is it possible to sort of reverse the impact through nutrition?
Um, so big
Yeah.
words. So
Yes.
with nutrition, I guess, we've got to be realistic about this. There's never going to be one magic thing that will
Yeah.
reverse things. It's just not reality. So again, there is no one size fits all when it comes to kind of complex needs, and endometriosis is exactly the same. Again, what I would say with endo is that it is a very inflammatory condition. So sugar is a very inflammatory product. So I would want to be taking sugars out as well. But it's just keeping a really basic, simple diet. So if you think about what your great grandparents did, how they ate, everything was simple, everything was wholesome, everything was quite well balanced. So and quite anti-inflammatory. So it's just trying to mimic all of those kind of things, and just cutting out all of the conveniency processed foods that we are so exposed to at the moment, and that helps reduce inflammation, and that reduction in inflammation can be quite supportive with some of the symptoms and start helping a little bit with that hormone balance.
When you're consulting patients at TFP Fertility UK, do you see many patients with endometriosis and PCOS?
Yeah, I do. I do. More polycystic ovaries actually than endo, but absolutely I've worked extensively with both. Yeah, it's rife, and obviously there is, there is an impact with fertility with both of those. One other thing across both of them that is very, very common is a lot of the ladies that I see are very stressed about their condition, and they feel that kind of there's this blame on them that it's a problem and it's not their fault at all. But stress is going to make things 10 times worse. So when we think of stress, we often think just of the emotional stress, but there's a lot of dietary stresses and physical stresses that go on as well. So I do look a lot at relaxation techniques, and bringing stressful foods out of the diet and kind of calming foods into the diet as well. So yeah, I work across both, and we do a lot more around whole life rather than just literally what's on your plate.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Thank you for that. Next question is about progesterone levels. Can diet support progesterone levels? Oh, can everyone hear me?
Extra nutrients that are required when you might be a little bit low on progesterone levels. Those are things like zinc and vitamin C again, but you'll get those in abundance on a Mediterranean style basic diet. The thing with progesterone, it's not always about low progesterone. Sometimes it's just more the ratio between the estrogen and the progesterone. And a lot of people find that if they're having quite a lot of the endocrine disrupting chemicals in their environment, or maybe they have sort of polycystic ovaries or whatever, that just that imbalance just means that progesterone is naturally lower than it kind of needs to be. So we work more on supporting everything else that allows progesterone to kind of come up a little bit more naturally, or just that ratio to be a little bit more optimal.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously for those who are having fertility treatment, implantation is hugely, something that is front of mind when you've got precious embryos going back in. So how can your eating habit and your nutrition sort of have an impact on supporting implantation, successful
So
implantation?
I think I sound a little bit like a broken record now.
Go
There's
for it.
nothing fancy that you need to
Yeah.
do. You want to be eating a very good diet that is full of plant foods. Like 50% of what you eat should be plant foods, and ideally the non-starchy ones. So lots and lots of vegetables, green leafy vegetables, lots of variety. You want to be avoiding inflammatory things like sugars and alcohol and artificial sweeteners. They're all inflammatory, and you do not want to have an inflammatory response going on in your body while you're trying to implant. So it's the kind of calming everything down, being consistent, and just keeping with that wonderfully plant-based kind of, with a little bit of meat and fish if you eat meat and fish in there. So nothing fancy. It's just consistently good
Yep,
stuff.
makes sense. If you're someone like me who isn't particularly good with vegetables,
Okay.
would you suggest to patients, making fresh smoothies, that kind of thing?
Uh, yes and no. So I would go straight back and challenge you and say, by particularly not good with vegetables, what do we mean? And then I would produce a list of all fruits and vegetables known to man in their different color categories, because I'm a massive fan of the eating a rainbow, and like having something green, something red, something orange, something yellow every day, and things like that. But I would then get you to highlight all of the things that you eat, and maybe look actually there might be more things that you could um, actually introduce into your diet so that it doesn't maybe look quite so void. I'm not a massive fan of just juicing everything, purely because it does break down the
Right.
fiber, and that fiber is really, really important for your gut health. But also by smashing out that fiber, the way that juices go into your digestive system, all of the sugars are released. So actually, if you take something like, say, an orange juice, and it really doesn't matter if you've whacked a handful of kale in there, it kind of, it's exactly the same as having a can of Coke or Pepsi kind
Really?
of sugar content. It's going to
Right.
spike your blood sugar levels in exactly the same way. Yes, you have the benefit that it might have given you a little bit of vitamin C and maybe some B vitamins, but ultimately it's given you a massive sugar rush. So unless you're whacking in lots of nut butters and protein powders and things like that, then it's actually going to be more inflammatory than good. So I would go back to, right, what could you eat? What vegetables do you like? And is there a way of maybe making them in a way that are more tolerable to you? So could we make them into a tomato sauce, or kind of
Yeah.
to have with some pasta and things like that? So again, it's close to nature, and the juices are just that little bit too far away from nature, really, for them to be really beneficial.
Really, really good and interesting to understand. Thank you. Someone has asked anything in particular for hypothyroidism.
Hypo or hyper?
She's written
Hypo.
hypo.
So that is a low thyroid. So there's lots of stuff, and I love a thyroid. So if I was working with a client who had an underactive thyroid, I would want to know why they have an underactive thyroid. So there's lots of different reasons that your thyroid isn't necessarily producing enough thyroid hormones, and it can be something called Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition where that's a very inflammatory thing. So we would look at a very anti-inflammatory diet based on that. It could just be that you're not quite getting enough of the nutrients in to make the thyroid hormones. So if that was the case, we'd be looking a little bit around that. For other people, it could be that they are making enough, they're just not converting the T4 into its active form. And so we would then be looking at kind of getting rid of the things that are kind of the toxins and all of that kind of stuff that might be kind of blocking that conversion. So with an underactive thyroid, a lot of people fall into the trap of having lots of hot drinks throughout the day, because they're often quite cold. And actually what's happening is tea has got a huge amount of fluoride in it, and that can block the thyroid hormones. So quite often just cutting down your tea can really help. A lot of people do a lot of juices and smoothies and things like that. If you're having any sort of green veg raw in a smoothie, like kale or spinach or something like that, that's a complete no-no
Right.
for anybody who has an underactive thyroid, because they've got goitrogenic properties in them, and they block your body being able to make thyroid hormones as well. I'd be looking at how you're taking your thyroid medication, because you need an hour's gap between your medication and the first time you eat food. There is so much that can be supported for thyroid health, definitely. But you again, broken record, good consistent eating though can help quite a lot with that.
Brilliant. Thank you for clarifying that. I hope that answers the question. Endocrine disruptors are said to be a #1 cause of infertility. Can diet and nutrition have an impact here?
Yeah. So absolutely. So I said earlier about the washing fruits and
Yep.
vegetables because of the pesticides and the
Yes.
herbicides, because they're the endocrine disrupting chemicals. Then the next thing to look at is your food storage. So a lot of us store a lot of leftover foods in those thousands of takeaway cartons that we've all got in the
Yep.
backs of our cupboards.
Yeah.
That shame us to how many people have takeaways, how often we have them. So they are terrible.
Right.
So even if you go for BPA free plastic, BPA is a massive EDC, but all plastics are pretty bad. It's just had the worst bit taken out of it. So I would look at using silicone food bags. I'd look at using beeswax wraps or parchment paper rather than cling films or foils. And I'd be looking at storing any and heating any leftover foods in a glass or Pyrex kind of containers, so that you just try and rid yourself of toxins that are coming through food plastics. And then outside that, then you'd start looking at, okay, so what about cleaning products, and what about body care products, and are you wearing gloves when you're washing up and cleaning, and kind of where are the chemicals there? Are you a candle burner? Are you spraying air fresheners all of the time? All of these have got huge number of these endocrine disrupting chemicals in them. So it's around kind of, certainly with the food and nutrition side, looking into the kitchen, and then you start looking wider than that.
Makes complete sense. What about gut health impacting fertility?
Yeah, so absolutely it does. So we have a microbiome, which is our own little ecosystem that lives in our digestive system. And we have actually more bacteria in our microbiome than we have cells in the human body. So we are more bug than we are human, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. So they're kind of important. They're kind of more important than us. They can totally live without us. We cannot live without them at all. They are pretty much the hub of our immune system. They help us to break down and absorb all of the nutrients from our food. They help us to eliminate toxic waste out of our body. And we have kind of good and bad bacteria that live in there. And most often it's kind of crowd control. So as long as you've got more of the good bacteria than the bad bacteria, generally speaking, things are okay. But any sort of constipation or diarrhea or bloating or any sort of food intolerances or kind of churning or cramps or anything like that starts to give us a bit of an indication that maybe something in your digestive system isn't quite right. In terms of fertility, what's not going to help is if you have this dysbiosis where maybe you have some non-beneficial strains in there that are causing problems and maybe not enough of the good guys. What can happen is all of the old hormones, especially things like old estrogen that has been put into the digestive system ready to be got rid of, can actually get reactivated by these bacteria, and then they have to go back into the system to be made safe again by the liver. And that can cause a massive imbalance of hormones and almost put you in this estrogen dominant state. So we need the digestive system to be working well and getting rid of kind of as much of these toxins as possible. So the good guys, they you don't necessarily need to just start popping in loads of kind of probiotics and loads of Yakult drinks and things like that. You don't need to necessarily do all of that. Some people do, but most don't. So you just need to feed the good guys that are there, and fruits and vegetables is what they absolutely love. And in terms of those bad guys, they love alcohol, they love sugars, they love rubbish foods, really. So you want to be starving them of those. And just kind of nurturing things as best as you can. Stress is awful for the gut bacteria. The good guys do not like being stressed. So the more you can do to do daily relaxation, even if it's just 10-15 minutes of relaxation, that can really help your gut health as well. So if you feel that things aren't quite right, then absolutely seek help. There's so much that can be done for digestive support, and obviously, you really do want that with clearing out old hormones.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much. Last question. 3 sort of must-dos for anyone who might be sort of over 35, 40, for example. Anything different that you might want to think about from a nutritional standpoint?
So there's not masses of difference. Again, it's that consistency, but maybe consistency is just a little bit more important as we age, and certainly the closer you get to 40, your body does change a little bit in that you don't tolerate sugars quite so well as you used to. Also, you start to lose muscle mass naturally once you get to around about 40. So I guess my kind of top three things would be absolutely be as strict as you can on the eating plan. Not so that it feels like a diet with an expiry date, but just good, wholesome foods as consistently as possible. I'd probably prioritize protein and make sure you really are having that wonderful kind of palm-sized piece of protein at every single meal or snack. And I would just really focus on gentle exercise, not really stressful exercise, and relaxation, just to kind of all round kind of de-stress and putting lots of good nutrients at that point.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much, Janet, for your time tonight.
You're
It's been really
very
insightful.
welcome.
And I urge people to head to our link in bio to get in touch with the TFP Fertility UK team for holistic fertility support. And as I said, we have just written an article with you all around fertility nutrition. So head to theribbonbox.com to read that as well. But thank you very much. And thanks to those who have joined this evening.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Janet. Thanks,
Take care.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.